Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm making another page using the July Hip Kit Club kit. I have both the kit and the embellishment add-on, and you can see all of my leftovers from the other layout that I made that it should be on my channel right before this page. And that one was, I think it was called, oh, I forget what it was called, so you'll have to look and see. I'll try to link it in the information section below if I can remember. But this kit has a lot, well, I think it's entirely exclusive to the Hip Kit Club. Oh, there it is. It's called Emerge. And so I wanted to do this page using, on that page, I used the circle frame, chipboard frames. And on this one, I want to use the hexagon chipboard frame. And I already picked out a photo here. This is my daughter and I on a train ride. It's like a little kid train ride, but we're pretending it's a big scary ride. And so I wanted to, just for context, print up this photo, which shows that it was actually a train ride that we were on, like a little tiny kid train ride, but it goes all the way around the park. So this is my context photo. I printed it up at 2 by 4 inches, so it's quite a bit smaller, and I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to use it at this point, but it's just kind of giving me that context that I really wanted to have for this layout, because otherwise it looks like we might have been on an actually scary ride. So I decided to go with the larger of the two photos that I printed up here of my daughter and I with our arms in the air. She was a good sport. She thought that this was a very lame joke, but she went along with it anyways. She's getting to the age where she's starting to indulge me, which is quite nice. Not all eye rolls, just mostly eye rolls at this point. So I'm going to start by removing all of these hexagon stickers, which I will use for another project at some point, but I don't need them today. So I'm just removing them from the frame, and that allows me to just have a look at the frame and kind of use it and, you know, start to put my photo in and all that sort of thing. So I just put those onto wax paper. Now, sometimes stickers will stick to wax paper for good and you can't get them off. So just be aware of that if you're using wax paper for your stickers for temporary placement. So this is the way that I'm going to do this. And if I had done it this way, like with the other, I like the context photo because it's got earth in it and it's kind of like it's on the ground. I actually want it to be down on the bottom of this kind of bunch of hexagons. That's just my own personal preference. There's no right or wrong for scrapbooking, and I could have totally left it on the other side. It's just I didn't like how high it was when it was on the other side. Also, I think of that larger photo as being the main photo, so I want it to be the first one that your eye encounters as it's moving from left to right on the page. So as you can see, I'm just having a look at my embellishments, and because that's going to guide in some ways, it's going to guide what I do because I want to kind of leave room for any embellishments that I want to use. Now, I do keep some pieces of paper right on my table that are like craft paper, white paper, black paper, brown paper, just cut down into half sizes so that it's easy to store and easy to grab. So I just grabbed a piece of craft paper because I know that that photo, that square photo that I am going to be matting on this frame is going to have a little bit showing on either side. And I thought that craft paper would be the least obvious and like kind of allow that photo to blend in with the background and not be so obvious that there's a big gap in it. I'm actually cutting down that acetate backing that this is on because I thought that cutting it down and being able to trace around this without having it be stuck to the paper, because once I pull off the acetate, of course it's sticky and then it's gonna stick to the craft paper and it's gonna be hard to cut. So I decided to kind of outline it. I cut it away so that I could trace around it. And now I'm just basically, I traced in a very rough way and trimmed it down in a rough way so that then I could go back and trim it more as needed. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of trimming off a little bit more, having a look at it, deciding what needs a little bit more trimming because I don't want the craft paper to be sticking out from behind the frames. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of wiggle room so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfectly placed. If I cut it a little bit smaller than the frame, then I have a bit of wiggle room for a little margin of error. So as you see, it turns out that because of the way our arms are positioned, that craft paper really does just kind of like blend in with the skin tone of our arms, which is kind of surprising. I wasn't expecting myself to have craft colored skin tone, but apparently we do. So yeah, that turns out it's a nice little kind of happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. Yeah, so it looks pretty good. I was wanting it. I specifically chose a color that I thought would blend in, but I just wasn't sure. I didn't know it would blend in quite that well. So now I'm going to do pretty much the same thing here. It's a little bit trickier because this photo doesn't fit as well on this, and it's not going to blend, but that's okay. I figure that looks pretty okay. And now I just have to line it up and make sure that it's going to be, you know, not too crooked. And it looks crooked, but then once I line up the frames, it actually doesn't look crooked anymore. So it's crooked when you don't have the frame on, but then when you put the frame in place, it doesn't look crooked anymore. So I guess that works out fine. So just a lot more of this kind of fitting it, trimming it, trying it out again, trimming it some more, trying it out again, trimming it some more. That's just kind of the process here for this. So as you can see, it's looking pretty good. So I am going to stick this down. I'm just laying the photo and the craft paper right on top of that piece of acetate that holds the sticky thing. And that way it's kind of still on the backing, even though now the photos are in place, which is kind of nice. So I can still kind of audition it around my page, and I'm not married to the placement of it. I can move it around. So this is a set of puffy sticker titles that came in the kit, and it says go see do. There were a number of different phrases there that would work well with this, but I really liked how the go see do kind of fit there. I liked the placement and the size and the design of it, so I thought I'd place it there. My initial intention was that would not be the title, but it turns out it is the title, so there you go. This pattern paper, also from the kit, it's another exclusive Hip Kit Club pattern paper from this month, from the July kit. I really like how that looked in the hexagons. So in order to avoid myself having to cut a bunch of hexagons and place them like I just did with the photo, I decided to just stick the frame sticker right down onto the pattern paper, and I decided to just cut around it. I'm using my Cutter B scissors because they can get into some of these nooks and crannies a little bit easier than my big scissors. And as you can see, I zoomed in a bit so that you can see I'm cutting it so that it's a little bit smaller than the frame itself, so that I'm not seeing any bits sticking out. So I'm holding it on a bit of an angle, and then the places where the photo is, I can cut big kind of chunks of it out and not worry, because you're not going to see that. These last little angles proved a little bit more difficult than the first ones, but I was able to get it all kind of sorted. And then there was a little bit showing, but it turns out that you can't see it. I have an embellishment over top of it. So there's a bit of a rough edge on the bottom of that top. See me trying to fix it there? It's just a little bit rough. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I couldn't get it perfect. If I'd spent more time, maybe I could have. But what I decided to do was to just wait. And as I place my embellishments, I'll be mindful that I kind of would prefer for one to go over there. And if it doesn't, it's okay. Things don't have to be perfect. So I'm placing that sticker down again. I like how it spans just across. It connects the two photos together, and it just spans the bottom quite nicely. I like that. Now I do have these borders that came in the kit. Well, I think these borders were part of the add-on, the embellishment add-on. And I like how they give a little bit more detail there. If I put them above, there's going to be a shadow behind them, and it just adds a little bit of interest there. So I'm just kind of trimming it and playing around with, I want the angle to kind of mimic the angle of the hexagon. So as you can see, I'm just kind of, working with my scissors at the angle that I need it to be so that I can kind of replicate that. And I like that. It almost looks like there's a little curtain on it. Now, these borders have a real rounded look to them, so I'm just using my scissors to round the edges to make it look a little bit more customized and not like I just kind of hacked a piece of it, even though that's what I actually did. Here's a smarter way to do it. Just use your pencil to draw some lines instead of trying to eyeball it, and position your scissors so that you can replicate the lines. I'm rounding this one as well. And then because that piece, that hexagon frame piece is chipboard, what ends up happening is this hangs off of the edge of the page and provides a bit of shadow. So I'm putting some dimensional adhesive on there to just hold the space. So that also allows it to, I mean, the dimensional adhesive will also adhere it, right? Because there's only a tiny little lip that little piece of border is sticking to the frame. So that works quite well, actually. And then I'm just mirroring it on the bottom, and it looks kind of cute. I know it looks a little bit almost like there's a mouth that the photo is in, but it's pretty cute. I like it. And you'll see when you see the close-up photos that provides quite a bit of dimension. This layout is going to be a fairly simplistic layout in that it's not going to have a ton of embellishing and details on it. I'm thinking about outlining around the outside edge of it with a black marker, but I'm ultimately not going to do that. The reason is that I actually really like the soft look of this page. It doesn't have a lot of high contrast elements to it. And I just felt like it has this kind of whimsical, summery, airy feel. And if I had added the black outlining, I just felt like it would anchor it. And sometimes that's what you want. But I felt like it would just kind of take away from that light, airy feel that the layout has without the outlining. So I didn't do it. Now, I wanted to... this was very much a very impulsive idea here that I wasn't going to do this. I was going to put the journaling in one of the frames. And then I thought I was just going to have the top be completely empty and just have the frames. Then I thought maybe I should put my journaling up in the corner here. And I pulled one of the other frames that was kind of nested in that set of frames. And I thought it looked pretty cool. So I just decided to go with it, even though it wasn't at all what I had planned. I'm having quite a bit of trouble getting my roller to work, and I'm not on this. This is the We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter, which allows you to type on 12 by 12 paper, which a standard typewriter won't allow you to do. So that's why I'm using this one instead of my little yellow one, which I really like my yellow one better because I'm more familiar with it. And also it doesn't do this. But so excuse my head there as I try to figure this out. I decided to switch to another piece of paper because I didn't want to ruin my background paper in case, I don't know. I ended up pressing pause for a minute and figuring it out. But what I figured out is that I think my typewriter either just doesn't work or the videos that show how to use it are missing a step. But anyhow, I looked at a video and it didn't seem to help. So I just jammed it through with brute force and that seemed to work. So I'm not sure if that's the recommended way, but if you know about some type of lever or something that I'm missing, leave me a comment because I'd love to know how to use it properly. So once I got the paper into my typewriter, it makes it pretty easy for me to put the typing right where I need it to go. So I had put those faint pencil lines on there. I'm not sure if you saw me do that, but I just basically traced around where the hexagon was framing in the paper. And I'm just typing out, I'm kind of typing off the top of my head, so I didn't plan what I was going to write until I wrote it. It says, Liv was having nothing to do with the roller coaster, so I convinced her to go on the train ride around the park with me. We had a laugh pretending to be on a real ride. And at one point, I was running out of room. I wanted to write the word convinced, and I ran out of space, so I wrote con, and then I sillily wrote the V, and then I went back and just covered it up. Like I typed over the V with a little dash and continued the word on the other side. So there's a little typo, like a little error on it, but that's okay. It's, you see there, the V is there, but I just typed over it with a little dash, like a hyphen. And I don't expect my scrapbook pages to be perfect, so that sort of thing doesn't bother me at all. And now I'm just going to use my mono tape runner, my Tombow mono tape runner, and add the frame like that. I really like how that looks. It just, it brings some of that border up to the top that's already in the hexagon part of the page, and like in the framed part of the page, I mean, and adds a bit of interest up there as well. I really like how this one looks. It's shaping up to look pretty good, and I'm going to put very, very, very few finishing details on this. I thought about splatter, but decided against it. If I had done splatter, I would have done just some white splatter, and I still might, but I don't think so. So I'm just taking, these are chipboard stickers from the flower set that came in this kit. There were some layered flowers, and one of the layers is these chipboard buttons, and I'm taking the ones that don't have any buttonholes in them, and I'm just putting them in a few different places. Not many at all, just basically these 3 places. And putting one up at the top there really just kind of allows me to have some of that navy blue color that shows up in the pattern paper below. It brings that blue up there, and also a hit of pink. And so now I'm just kind of trying to think, first of all, I'm thinking, do I want a title, or do I want Go See Do to be my title? And I decided to make Go See Do be my title, but I also want to put a couple of subtitles or caption type things. And I decided to pull out my label makers. This is my label maker drawer. It has my brother household label maker, but it also has these Dymo label makers, of which I have a few. And I have a few because they have different wheels and that have different fonts. These ones are by Motex, and I got them on Etsy many, many, many years ago when Etsy was pretty new. And they have a couple of different, those wheels are replaceable. And so I'm using this font that's kind of like a plain kind of a font. It's very modern, and it's uppercase, and I'm just writing out the word sandspit. And the thing about these Motex label makers is that they're not perfect. So the cutter in it doesn't work very well. I have to use my scissors, and it doesn't really hold the label sticker stuff the way that it's supposed to, but it gets the job done. It makes for a really nice label. It's just not, it doesn't seem to work the way that it's meant to work, but that's okay. I do have 2 of them. I'm not sure why I have 2 of them, because all of the wheels are interchangeable, and I have 3 different wheels and 2 different machines, and you really only need 1 machine, but I don't know if I bought a bundle, or I don't know what happened, but it was so long ago I don't remember. I'm going to shorten this just a little tiny bit, and I went with the pink tape just because I kind of thought about all the other different colors that I have, and pink seemed to be something that would be nice to bring down here below the yellow Go See Do. And the one, you know how I said that those label makers, they don't work all that, they make a nice product, but they're a little awkward for using. One of the things is that because the cutter doesn't work, you don't get that nice little notch that allows you to easily peel them. So they're very difficult to peel because that sticker's backing is ridiculous. So as you can see, it's taking me a very long time, but my fingernails helped. I'm putting, that's the year up there, so it just says 2021. I did have to use a different wheel for that one because the font that I had didn't have numbers in it. So I went with a lowercase font that had numbers on that wheel. And it's not exactly the same font, but it's pretty similar. So it says Sandspit PEI on the bottom one, and I'm just thinking here that I'd like to staple it, but it's a little awkward. It's a little hard to staple, but I just pulled it up and stapled it anyways, and I do like how that looked. So what I've decided to do is staple this one anyways, which does, when you staple in the middle of your page with a tiny attacher, I do have a video on my channel that shows you how to do it, but you have to open your tiny attacher and then close it back again, but without the handle inside, and then just do it on a soft surface. I didn't have a soft surface, so I was going to use my eraser, and that did not work. The eraser was way too hard. You have to have a very soft surface. So I have this little piece of black foam that I have in my little accessory holder. I use it to kind of keep some things up, right? Like I keep some needles and pokers and stuff. So I just pulled it out and used it, and it worked well. And then that is a little, I think it's a We Are Memory Keepers. It's a brad tool, that pink handled thing, and I use it for closing my staples after I staple in the middle of a page. I felt like it just needed a little something else, so I took this moth and then I decided to take the other moth. Most of these stickers that are left on this sticker sheet are way too big for this layout, so I didn't want to use any of the other ones. So now the layout is almost complete. I just pulled out my enamel dots. I do have a video on my channel about how I put my enamel dots into this kind of a format. I have them stored by color, which is a bit of an investment of time to get them like this, but once they are like this, it's easy to keep up with it. And as you can see, it makes it really easy for me to be able to pick a color of an enamel dot and then just pull out that color and find the ones that I need. Much, much better than looking through dozens and dozens of packages. So here's the final product. I really like this page, even though it's very, very simple. I quite like it. You can see the shadow from that little border piece there. And then on this part, I didn't use it with the shadow, so you don't have to do the same thing every time. Thanks so much for watching, and have a really great scrappy week. Check out my Patreon if you're interested in real-time process videos, because I have a bunch of them over there. Almost every one of my recent process videos have a real-time version, which is unedited and long, and if you like those, you can check that out. Have a great scrappy week.